Today, I'm at the Blue Beach Fossil Museum here in Avonport, Nova Scotia, and I'm speaking to Chris Mansky, who is the chief operator here. Now, Chris, perhaps you can tell me a little bit about the beginnings of the museum, how you got involved, and what visitors can expect to see when they come here.
Basically, the museum began when my wife and I really wanted to do something about the fossil richness that was here. There was a tremendous amount of very important material, and there was just so much we wanted the public to have a chance to partake and to see what we were doing. So in 2002, we began to build the museum and opened our doors, and it's never been the same since.
Now, were you always interested in fossils, or is it something that you just came by at chance or by accident, and all of a sudden now you're a fossil hunter?
Yeah, I came upon fossils about the age of 5 by chance. And so you could say I've more or less always been interested in them. However, 20 plus years of fossil hunting throughout Canada generally was very different than the fossils at Blue Beach. So I was starting to feel as though I kind of had a handle on things. I'd kind of learned mostly what I needed to know to fossil hunt. And when I met Blue Beach, when I first came to Nova Scotia and saw this place, I realized there was a tremendous mystery out there that I didn't know enough about. And as such, I was hooked. So I began to return to the site and build a collection, try to do the research. And that was the beginnings.
Now, you say this is a treasure trove. You would think that with all these fossils here that it would have been more widely advertised or more people would know about it.
You would. But surprisingly, collections remained small. Researchers were attracted to other topics and other fossil sites. And somehow Blue Beach has a long record of being overlooked. And that's fortunate for me. That was largely untouched, and the studies could be extended so much more.
So when you first came here as a fossil hunter and you saw all these fossils on the beach, what was your reaction? Like, I can't believe this. Look at all these fossils. Huh?
Yeah, it was not only all these fossils. The fact is that every third rock at Blue Beach has a bump or a line or some kind of marking on it. And in a marine environment, that shape would have to have been something. But here, sometimes there's 10 answers for a bump and a line, and it's maybe wind and weather, and it's not really a fossil. So I was seeing all the fossils, I was seeing all the shapes. I did realize that there's a million varieties, and there can't have been a million species. So some of this stuff must be not fossil. That was part of the trick of understanding and identifying what's significant and parsing it out from what's not significant. On a beach like this, there are 100 million rocks out there, and they're on the move.
Now, for most people, when you think of fossils, they're thinking like Jurassic Park and all the rest of it, of a T-Rex or a Velociraptor. These are the type of animals that they sort of think of in terms of fossils. But that's not the case here, is it?
Oh, not at all. This is confusion not only to the general public to think of, but it's actually a confusion to the scientific community to understand the first amphibians. We simply don't have enough fossils in the world record to have a good grip on them. I would just say 7 families of obscure early amphibia mixed in with some even more primitive beasts, early fishes, and for the most part, this story from the early carbon period is only a very small part of any textbook you might have come across. So, no, it's an untold story, or it's one that needs to be fleshed out.
So this is an ongoing story. For example, I know as a kid, when every child in the world is fascinated with dinosaurs. And for so long, it was assumed that these were reptiles. But in actual fact, that they're finding out that they had feathers and they might be birds. So it's important for these animals. You're saying they're amphibians. So these were really the first creatures that came out of the sea and then were the progenitor of all of us.
Yeah, Absolutely. This is the dawn of life on land and the modern ecosystem. So that's not only the vertebrates and us, it's the fish side of the story, it's the modern bugs, all have their roots in the early carbon period. But specifically to you and me, this is very significant. I'm a tetrapod, meaning I'm a four-limbed creature. And we have the first tetrapods at Blue Beach that lead to everything today. So our record of footprints, for example, shows a maximum of 5 toes. We've never found more than 5 toes, and 5 is normal for almost every species. We have 5 toes and fingers. We count by tens because the common ancestor to all of us was a 5-toed animal. It gave rise to a whole 5-toed fauna of different families of amphibia.
And when you say amphibia, for our viewers, those are like the amphibians we have today that can live on water and on land, right?
The modern amphibia are not the same thing as what I'm talking about, the ancient amphibia. The ancient amphibia, they all disappeared. We have a little blank and then appearing of the modern amphibia. So that's yet another of evolution's mysteries for later in time, is where did the modern amphibia come from? They must have come from some of the ancient ones. But we use the word amphibia simply to to describe animals who are in the water sometimes, out of the water sometimes, but they can't live full-time on land.
And the basis would have been these creatures that you find in the fossils.
Yeah, we are basically the only shred of real evidence, the only clue that there even was ancient life that looked different, or that evolution ever really even played a part. The only clue out there is fossils. So if we don't find it in a fossil, then we cannot even ever know it existed.
Here we are on Blue Beach. Now, I have a couple of questions. One, why is it called Blue Beach? And secondly, why is this such a treasure trove for fossils? What is it about this beach that makes it so important in terms of finding these fossils?
Well, at least the first one's a short answer. Blue Beach is called so not because of the color of the water, which is very muddy, but it's the color of the shale that has been eroding down here. It's got a blue-gray cast to it, and the first people to see it saw it from the boat. And looking ashore, this end of the beach had a noticeable blue hue to it. So it's been named Blue Beach since before Confederation.
And why? How did this become known for such a treasure trove for fossils? I know to the untrained eye, which is me, I just see a bunch of rocks. I see some like sedentary rock over there. I don't see what you see. Let's put it that way.
Well, Blue Beach is a special little patch of geography where we're standing in an area that used to be a beach, it used to be a shallow shoreline, and it was teeming with life. And beside us was the mainland. We are the closest to the mountains of Africa as Pangea was forming. So here on the beach, we get a mix of the greatest density of animals from the water and land plants and animals from the land. And like beaches today, things wash up on the shore like flotsam and jetsam. So at Blue Beach, you have many opportunities for finding animals that are washed into the mud as a pile of ancient debris. And in other circumstances, we have mud flats and beach sands that are so well preserved that on them you can find footprints, tracks, trails, and other traces of all the life that was here. So being a beach and having the tide constantly eroding the shoreline, it gives us really a changing spectrum of fossils every day. interestingly enough, it's the kind of detective work that amateurs can do and even laypersons with no experience can do. It doesn't take a special person to find a special fossil. You just gotta see it when it's laying there and pick it up. And we find that everyday people make extraordinary discoveries here.
Well, I'm going to hopefully look around. Hopefully I'll find one. But for me, for example, I came down here and looked at this beach. All I'd see was, well, it's not very sandy. It looks like it's full of slate. I think I'll go try another beach.
Yeah, well, once you are shown a few fossils, you never really forget that shape. And it's very quick to educate somebody on the difference. And after having that treatment, you'll never look at rocks the same.
I'm starting to get that. Now, you give tours down here, right?
Yes, yeah.
And what's the reaction when you actually show a visitor and they pick up a rock, and to me, it would just look like a rock, and say, no, have a look at this. So there must be a look of just utter disbelief and in some cases joy when they see this, eh?
Yeah, a lot of people are surprised that they can find fossils with such ease, and that, in fact, they're all around us right now. There are many rocks here that contain fossils, and more than meets the eye.
How long have you been doing this, and what got you into it?
I've been a fossil hunter since I was a child, but I hunted fossils all through Western Canada. I came to Nova Scotia, chanced upon this beach, and at that point, I realized I was looking at something very different than anything I'd experienced. So this is very unique in general appearance. So I kind of got hooked. It pulled me back. I wanted to learn more. And soon I found out the textbooks had clearly, and the literature had clearly not dealt with Blue Beach very much. Here I was, all alone on a 4-kilometer beach. There were hundreds of different styles of bone to be found, and only 7 bones had ever been described in an old woodcut from 1868.
Why? It would seem that, well, suppose that's the 19th century, maybe they didn't understand what they were finding?
Here's another thing about it. Blue Beach is usually 1 bone here, 1 bone there, and so you're never going to really put together a skeleton unless you have a warehouse full of parts. And then maybe patterns and repetition will bubble up and obvious patterns will be there for you to spot. However, if you're an early scientist and skeletons are found in another place and those haven't been described either, that's a better project to make your name on. So science went to the easier, more fuller descriptions, not realizing that this age of Blue Beach, which is much older than the others, was really the telling part of the story. This is where we're going to see the true dawn of the amphibia. And now, having studied all those skeletons, we realize they're too modern. We can't figure out who begat whom and how and when and where using those. We have to find them in an older state, or this mystery will never be solved.
It's odd because, for someone like me, when you think of fossils and archaeology, generally I think of the ones like in the Badlands in Alberta where they're doing a brontosaurus, or got this team of archaeologists digging and pulling out a skull like that. You never really think of it in terms of a beach and something like this.
Yeah, it's, I imagine the dinosaur hunters would love to borrow our Bay of Fundy tide. And if that tide could wash through their fossil area for them instead of it being a desert or a mountain or a quarry, it would make life a lot easier for them.
Well, Chris, since we're on Blue Beach and this is a treasure trove of fossils, perhaps since you have the eagle eye, you could guide me through and maybe I can find one that I can take home.
I think you probably succeed.
Now, when visitors come, if they do find a fossil, can they take it back with them?
Yes, as long as it's a fossil found down here loose. Yeah, there's no real restriction on visitors taking fossils from the loose talus. After all, the tide taking them by the millions. And when you take a rock off Blue Beach, you're saving it from this environment.
at this. I mean, this stuff is unbelievable. Right?
Stuff is falling from the cliffs and contributing. There's a nice example of the ripples of the waves. See? Blue Beach was a beach.
So that's a wave that was 350 million years old.
Right here. Here's one that's just shouts out to me. This is a very large bone from the skull of the big fish. You can see they're underneath a little bit, but they have, the shape of them is there. If you clean that rock off a little, you can expose the teeth. But this is the shelf of the lower jawbone.
So how big would this animal be?
Well, it's hard to say. I think it's a tetrapod. I don't think it's a fish. And I would probably say he's about 1 meter long.
Wow.
Right? So that's really something. That one goes in the collection.
Ah, okay.
You see what I mean? You can, with tools, we can get some of the harder parts. But even here, it's just right under there. A skull plate. This thing here, this is full of fossil, and it's kind of interesting too. It's not quite the same quality as that, but you see, this is where an invertebrate or a little water bug is rested, where the two rocks want to come apart. You see a crack, it's very, very eager to open up. And with very little, not even a proper hammer, there's the raindrops.
Look at that. Wow.
So this is 350 million year old rain shower. There's one you can have, a nice little raindrop.
And then it would have filled with silt and then became stone. And then that other little creature, how many years into the future would have done the same?
Yeah. I would say this had to be covered by mud pretty quick or it would wear away. That had to happen soon. And this is the mud that came to the rescue and covered the raindrops before it was too late.
And then how many years before that little bug came around?
Oh, it's hard to know, but that could be a period of several years.
Several years.
To develop that in this environment. That much sediment. That might be years after this. Altogether, we have 170 meters of rock. It's about 1 million years. That's probably encapsulated a 1 million year record.
So on this beach, this would be one of the prime fossil hunted sites?
Absolutely, yeah. Right in here, I call it First Reef. It's sort of an area we get most of the footprints start up here. Starting here, there's 14 layers just behind us, very closely packed together that all bear track.
Now, is it because, I'm noticing that you can easily peel away the shale, and because the storms come in and it hits it and then it pulls them out of the rock, right?
Yeah, the natural erosion is doing all the digging for free. Tide's kind of squeezing us out.
Okay, well maybe we better scoot
when
on,
the tide,
down there.
Yeah, we better scoot before we get wet. And essentially, when the tide goes out, there's 100 million rocks here and 4 kilometers of changing shore. So
I just want one.
No shortage.
I just want one.
Yeah.
Like you say that you're allowed to, if you can fill your garage.
You got one garage.
I'm not filling my garage. I'll settle for one. Well, Chris, let's see if we can find something for me, eh?
Well, there's always something.
I'm getting that there seems to be always something here, eh? Wait a minute.
Yep.
What's this?
Oh, yeah. See, now you're getting the hang of it.
What's this?
This is a footprint.
Okay, I can see that.
The longest claw in the middle and the other, and there's a faint mark here of the 4th digit. This is a pattern caused by mud and water and algae having a little argument. So the water has gathered, it's run little rivers, pushed its way through the mud and left some little channels. So that's a distortion. On the other side, the animal has walked through here and you've captured one footprint. These are his claw marks. Or we're going to assume he had claws because they're pretty pointy.
Looks like a claw there.
It's probably a clawed foot.
Now, what kind of animal would this be?
This is your early tetrapod.
A tetrapod is...
It means 4 limbs. I was waiting for you to ask that because I'm a tetrapod.
Oh, I thought I was a Canadian.
Well, yeah, but you have more than one hat to wear.
Okay.
If you're not a fish and you have bones, you must be a tetrapod.
Okay.
So another name for first amphibian is tetrapod. Another name for dinosaur is tetrapod. And I'm a tetrapod.
Okay.
Blue beach tetrapods are so old, some of them aren't even amphibians yet. They're pre-amphibian, meaning they're fully in the water. Not this one. This must be amongst the amphibia, the new kids on the block. So this is the guys who conquer land. This is what turns into everything we have today, including dinosaurs. So for my money, the Mesozoic period is all good and fine for intermittent. But the Paleozoic period, the age of ancient life, has some of the really perplexing mysteries. So this is an early tetrapod footprint. This is part of the oldest footprint collection in the world.
Now, I can take this home with you?
Yeah, that is a plentiful and common find at Blue Beach. We only really need to capture footprints that are in long sequence trackways, well-preserved, or very rare new forms. That's a common fossil, my friend.
Wow. Well, I want to thank you, Chris. This has been very, very informative. I've learned a lot that I had no idea. And in terms of visitors, I would suggest that you can go to anywhere you want. You can get your T-shirt, you can get a hat, you can get whatever you want. But if you come to Blue Beach, you can get a souvenir that's 350 million years old.
Outstanding.
Yeah,
that's what they're going to say.
That's right. So once again, thank you, Chris.
You're very welcome.
I wish you nothing but the best of luck this summer.
Oh, it's already shaping up.
Yeah, so we were lucky. We got you one of the rare ones, eh?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Tomorrow, probably get another.
Okay. Good on you.